Hey boss, welcome to a Thursday Collection Connection, where we're playing that game that's just an excuse to talk about records. I play the game with my brother, who is Plastic Eric, and he's over on the Plastic Soundwave Cult channel. Every Monday he shows an album, and every Thursday I show an album. And the connective tissue is that those albums have to relate in some way to each other. And we ask you to guess what that connection might be. So today we're going to forge a connection between Clark Kent by Clark Kent and Loss by the Mull Historical Society from 2002. But first we need to clear up the connection between the previous pair of albums, that being the Cramps' Bad Music for Bad People and Clark Kent. And the simple enough connection is that they were both on IRS Records, and possibly both managed by Miles Copeland. I didn't follow that up, but that was part of the guess made by Murdoch from Murdoch's Music Minute. He's back with another successful guess. He's got several album reviews that he's put out in the last couple of weeks, including one on the Steve Miller Band's Fly Like an Eagle. So check that out over on his channel. And with that, let's get on with the show. Alright, so the Clark Kent is an interesting album in that Stewart Copeland only ever put out the one album as Clark Kent, and yet he had a couple of extra singles, and in the 90s those singles were appended onto the album to be the collected works of Clark Kent, and then in 2023 it was all reissued with even another couple of tracks onto it as just Clark Kent again. So there's kind of three albums floating around that are all the same, and even with just the first album, it has 3 or 4 different covers, different arrangements of the Clark Kent name, and sometimes in Japanese pressings referred to as Clark Kent, which is what it said on the label, I guess. So I'm not sure what was going on there, but a lot of records, complicated history for just basically one album. And I was familiar with some of the Clark Kent songs, and as Eric mentioned, some of it really kind of sounds like the Police. It makes me think of like songs like Bombs Away and Miss Gradenko. And I have no idea if he was the primary architect of those songs. I didn't look it up, but those are the songs that it made me think of from the Police while listening to the Stewart Copeland Clark Kent album. And it's alright, it's for a fun little piece of history. The songs, especially I listened to the 2023 version, which did feel like it went on a little bit too long. Stewart Copeland does not have a great singing voice, which is not the connection, but kind of ties in a little bit to the Mull Historical Society. And so why don't we just use that as the segue to my connection, Loss by the Mull Historical Society from 2002. This is a band you may never have heard of. This was the first album from the Mull Historical Society, which is just the name. It sounds like a band, but it's just Colin McIntyre. We're back in Scotland again. And so Mull is the island where he is from. And I don't know which came first, the song or the band title, but one of the tracks on here is called Mull Historical Society. And I've listened to it a couple times in the last couple of days. And it's better than I remember it. We had a conversation, my wife and I, once a long time ago after listening to some of this album. And she was like, well, you know, there's Watching Xanadu, which is a track on here that we both really like. Great tracks at track number 2 on the album. Great song, but in listening to some of the other songs, she's like, you know, it's okay if a song they just have the one song that you like and the rest of the album's not very good. And I kind of went with that opinion, I think, for a long time. But listening to it in the last couple of days, it's really not bad. And it's got other strong songs. The song Only I, when it breaks into this big brass fanfare, is like really stirring and strong. I like the single, I believe, was called Animal Cannabis. Not spelled like cannabis, but like taking the bus. Don't know what it means, but that was a minor hit, and the whole album was a modest hit in the UK. It's a top 50 album, but just barely. And nothing he's released since has really made any noise whatsoever. He has released several albums, both under the Mull Historical Society name and under his own name. But this is the only one that I have. This is the only one that I've heard. And so I couldn't tell you if those other ones are any good. But I think I never pursued them because, again, we kind of had the impression that maybe it's just not all that great. But again, in listening to it in the last couple of days, I think its biggest, the biggest detraction from it is that the opening track, he's not a great singer. And there's this note that he keeps reaching for in the chorus that it's kind of shouted at you a little bit. And a series of notes, and it's repeated and repeated, and it's the repetition of that right on track one that I think wears a little thin. And there's a couple of times where he does that, and repetition doesn't feel like it's his friend. So I love a lot of artists whose singer you wouldn't say is a great singer, but that kind of showcase on a big chorus that you really got to struggle to hit the notes for. Where it does wear a little thin on me, but the overall album is quite good, actually. And the Mull Historical Society song isn't bad. Barcode Bypass may have been another single, but is pretty good. And again, Watching Xanadu is a great little pop single. And so overall, it's got stuff that's not bad to listen to. It's just got a kind of a bad track one with that repetitive chorus that is shouted at you. But it was nice to bust it out again, to have a reason to listen to the Mull Historical Society and wonder what became of them, if any of the subsequent music that they made was any good. I don't know. Maybe I'll follow up on that. Maybe I won't. But with that, I will throw it back over to Eric, and he will connect something in his collection to Loss by the Mull Historical Society from 2002. And if you have any ideas on what the connection might be between this and the Clark Kent album by Stuart Copeland, aka Clark Kent, and leave your guess in the comments, and the first right answer will get a shout out in the next video. And with that, trying to do this with minimal edits, get out of here, get out and quick. And so I'm going to end it there. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.